Wingman Joker, thank you for listening to this channel and please support the channel. Please subscribe. Chapter 424. New Song. Julian opened his eyes, sat up, and looked around him. He was lying on the dirt in a familiar dark forest. The one he was in before entering the dungeon. All around him, very fat girls were sitting on the ground whilst dusting the dirt off their bodies. Most of them had torn clothes, and some injuries, the result of a prolonged battle. He almost puked as he looked away. It was not a pretty sight. Even with the few pretty girls whom they got from the auction mixed in between the fat ones, he could no longer look. Anyway, at last, he was out of that accursed place. After he entered the dungeon, Julian found himself in a long masonry-built tunnel. One like that is found in ancient Gothic-style castles. Remembering Lily's advice, he began to move, intending to find a safe zone. He kept his steps in the light of the blue torches that illuminated the tunnels, avoiding the shadowy areas. Everything was fine as he found a well-lit room to rest in, but just then the dungeon shook and a terrifying scream rocked the entire castle. Suddenly everything began to turn around, the walls turned into the floor and the ceiling was the walls. It was as if he was in a washing machine. Then the monsters came, everything from bats to ghouls. So for the next 10 hours, he had to fight while keeping his balance on the ever-changing terrain. He couldn't believe how close he came to dying. It was really dangerous. Thankfully his class, Soul Paladin, was the natural predator of those things whose souls were very weak, so despite having entire armies of them swarming all over him, he managed to survive. Where was his sister? He wondered as he began to look around. There she was. Lily, are you okay? Julian asked immediately. All over her entire body was covered with blood, and the suit armor she wore before entering was half damaged and practically dyed red. She was also barefooted. Oh, I am fine, she said. This is not my blood, that bastard was just too hard to kill as I had to sneak around it. She added with a very dangerous glint in her eye as she rested an elegant thin sword on her shoulder. Now that I have got his drop though, it was all worth it. She added with a smile. Drop? Never mind that, how about you? Any casualties? She turned and asked. No mistress, although we had to do some fighting, we all survived thanks to the evil repelling and the hiding talismans you gave us. One of the fat girls replied as all the others bowed to her in thanks. Including the ones she got from the auction. They all survived. Wait, what hiding talismans? Julian asked. No one gave him anything like that. Just something I gave the girls, you didn't need it. Suffering builds a man's character. She dismissively said. He's silently cured. He didn't dare to curse at her directly. Not with that dangerous-looking sword in her hand. Every cell in his body was telling him that he better not let that thing touch him. Do you want to say something? Lily asked, noticing how he looked at her. Ah, you got a new sword, he said. You mean Nut Slicer, she said, slowly stroking the sword with passion. He is a good kid, an SSS-ranked artifact. I plan to put it to good use. SSS, wait, Nut Slicer? Julian asked as his crotch shivered. Young Julian just shrank by 3 inches hearing her say it. Yup, it is its new name, she said. It's a new purpose in life, she added with a nod. Quote. What? She asked, noticing the way he looked at her. No comment. He decided not to anger his sister ever again. How much did you level up? She asked him to change the subject. I am at level 58, he said as a smile crept on his face. It was as if the entire dungeon was attacking him earlier, but it was all worth it. Shit, she cursed. What? Why? Julian frowned. Don't you want me to get stronger? He asked. Not this fast. This might make you gain some unwarranted attention from our uncle, she said in a worried tone. We might need to delay our plan to return a little until I find you some good disguise skill, she added. It is not my fault, okay? Julian said. I had no choice but to fight. I know, she said. In truth, she planned to hoard all the express points in the dungeon for herself to level up fast, but her plan failed. By the way, who was the idiot who disobeyed my orders and caused the castle to activate? Asked as she pointed her sword toward the nervous girls. It was not me, Julian quickly clarified. His sister was very dangerous when she entered the punishment mode. He learned this the hard way. It's me, Alicia was the one who replied. She was biting her lip as she looked down. Oh, Lily sighed. What happened? She asked as she lowered her sword and sighed. She should have figured as much. I knocked off a coat of armor by mistake, and this sounded the alarm, she said as squeezed her fist. Ready to be punished. Okay, be more careful next time, Lily said as she completely put away her sword, making the girl look up in surprise. Wait, you are not going to punish her? Julian asked. Of course not, Lily said, surprising everyone. Alicia has a curse on her, you know. It is not her fault. A curse? Alicia asked as she squeezed her fist tighter. She always felt that she was cursed. Ever since she was young, bad things have happened around her. Yup, it makes your luck very bad and hurts those around you. You got a Jinx avatar class right? Yes, Alicia nodded. Classes usually reflect a player's personality, so I expected as much, Lily nodded. Don't worry, when I bring you to the auction, I already noticed that. I have a plan to remove your curse and make you stronger, but it will take some time. Thank you, Alicia nodded, as she looked at Lily with appreciation. Ever since she was a kid, whenever someone knew about her situation, they always shunned her. It was rare for someone to act friendly to her as Lily had been doing ever since she bought her. This had become my duty the moment you decided to follow me. Lily said with a smile. Scamming the poor girl, she had learned from the best. Now, let's go back inside. We need to rest before we plan our next move, she said, looking at the huge boulder behind her where the dungeon's entrance used to be. Inside? Yup, you mean into the dungeon? Julian asked nervously, looking around. There is no door here. It has already been conquered, you know, it is a ruin now. Entering it is a little tricky as this entire mountain has been changed in a sense, she said, touching the boulder with her hand as she uttered a sentence in a strange language. DV, she shouted. The rock suddenly shimmered and disappeared as if it were a mirage. Behind it, it revealed a path throughout the dark forest. You better remember the phrase I uttered, it is the password to get in. She told the girls as she started heading forward. In the other timeline, this place after it was conquered, those who did it failed to notice the secret entrance and left it as if. Later, this place was turned into a base for one of the most dangerous assassin organizations in the world, the Silver Dagger. It was secretly led by the demon that was hiding inside the castle acting like an old man. It took the imperial family 5 whole years to finally find them after they tried to assassinate the emperor. That's why Lily knew about it, and about the secret weapon that was hidden in it. This sword almost decapitated her father, if it weren't for the edict shard that forced the assassin to change the attack direction at the last moment. Ah, is it safe? Julian asked as he cautiously followed. There might be some traps here and there, but nothing really dangerous. Just an old castle, this place will be our secret base from now on. She added with a dangerous smile. Ellipsis. When Rita opened her eyes she was on the island. Not the family island, but another one filled with monsters. It took her 4 hours to circle around the entire island to the other side to finally locate where the family island was. Her mission was there after all. Looking at the dangerously looking sea separating the 2 islands, she hesitated whether she should cut some trees to make a boat or just swim there. Thankfully, she had to do neither as she quickly noticed some of the boats that were left by the family players that came here. Although they were guarded, it was trivial for her to find a boat a little further away, knock away its guard, and then take the boat. After that demon took over her body, and her attributes and already shot past the 300 points despite her only having a level 0. Taking the boat and dragging it to the water, she quickly applied a hiding talisman on it, climbed on it, took the oar then began heading to the family island. Ellipsis. Any updates? Margaret asked. She was sitting at a meeting table with Arya, Elise, and Lynn. This was their weekly meeting to discuss how to run the harem. This task was not as easy as it sounded, especially with a husband like Victor who only cared about adding girls to his ever-expanding collection. First, the team in Ring Cloud City had already started moving. The Justice Ring was handed to the Von Zwei agents and Alpha will make a move in a couple of days after collecting enough information, Elise said. Let them be careful, we don't want our Alpha to die before she learns about her new family order, Margaret said with a wicked smile. Quote. Arya sighed. Poor Alpha would definitely suffer a meltdown once Hannah passes the great-great-grandma's message to her. Did any of you hear anything from Victor? She asked, changing the subject. Not since he contacted Big Sister Lily last time, but I am sure he is fine. With his character, I don't see him entering any dangerous situations anytime soon, Elise wrongfully stated. Unless it is for some girl. Margaret corrected her. The girls nodded. How about the fake they plan to send us? Any news about him? Lynn asked. There is. I was about to tell you. Ellie said. Just this morning, a young man who looks like Victor was washed ashore in Brown Sand City. Is this news from our men or the Von Geldstats network? Margaret asked. Both. It is definitely him, she said. According to Kai, the family agents are already heading there at the moment. We better prepare on our side. As soon as the dungeon on the main island is cleared, they will contact us. She added. She had no worry about the dungeon not getting conquered sooner or later. The entire force of the family was there after all. Good, Margaret said. I will need you girls to conveniently leave the city by then, just for a few days until I sort him out, just in case that fake turned out to be a leecher. Margaret didn't want anything bad to happen to her sisters if things went wrong. Don't worry, we already have a full schedule, Arya explained. What about the situation on your side? She asked Margaret. Abe is ready. He is now partially convinced that he is the real Crimson Pearl. He is even trying to write his own novel. Margaret sighed. Although he might realize something is wrong if he was really grilled by someone, I am sure those guys will just hypnotize him to learn the truth, and at that point, our counter-hypnosis will take over. Margaret clarified. When will the action begin? I plan to make him meet Mikkel and Bianca after the fake appeared. With him acting like he has amnesia, it would be perfect. She said. Sadly, it is taking too long and those guys are getting restless, so we will start the day after tomorrow. I will be there acting all surprised that my cousin was a famous writer. She chuckled. Be careful, we don't know who our enemies are. Elise warned her. Your presence is vital for the plan to deal with the fake. If anything wrong were to happen to you, Mira would have to take your place. I know, Margaret nodded quickly. Now, what else? Arya asked. I have some news, Lynn said. The connection with the Von Rosen family island was cut. My mother is acting very nervous, and branch families have started investigating. Oh, did they summon that thing Victor talked about? Elise asked. Most likely, Margaret said. According to the plan, we will start to spread rumors about the dungeon there. Noted, Arya nodded. If that's all. I have something, Lynn suddenly interrupted, taking out an envelope and giving it to Margaret. This is, Margaret asked as she opened it and looked at the paper inside. A song that I composed. I hope Monica will add to her next album, Lynn said, scratching her head. This meeting is not about that kind of business, Arya frowned. She was very professional. This one is special, Lynn said, looking at Margaret who read the song with a raised eyebrow before giving the paper to the curious Arya. Although it might need some touching up, I don't mind this, but are you sure? Margaret asked. This will make her hate you even more. Yes, I also want to get some early revenge, Lynn said, feeling a little shy. We all do, Margaret said, putting her hand on Lynn's shoulder to reassure her. It was perfectly fine to humiliate your enemies. What the fuck is this? Arya suddenly flared. She had just finished reading the song. How many pussies are in this song? She asked as Elise poked her head from the side, reading the first few lines before blushing and retreating. This thing was too lewd for her. Bad pussy, doing bad things, grab the pussy, kick the pussy, doing dirty things. It went something like that. It is about a bad pussy who does bad things getting grabbed then punished after that, Lynn explained, making Elise, who knew what this was really about but couldn't help to think of all the other meanings, blush more. The girl had been getting really corrupted lately after staying with Margaret. Do you expect Monica to sing this? Arya asked. This will ruin her reputation. On top of that, mother-in-law would kill us. Not necessarily, Margaret interjected. We can just put a cat at the end of every phrase and shrug it all off. We can also make it an online free release. All the attention will be a good publicity stunt for the new album. She added. She was fully on board. That would be even worse. Do you want every animal rights group after us? Arya flared again. Those girls were beyond help. No one is that stupid. Margaret dismissed her. Look, even our Elise got it correctly. The blushing Elise looked away in shame. I want to find a very catchy melody for it so everyone in the world will make it their ringtone. Lynn continued to explain, biting her lip. I want that bitch to hear it whenever she goes. Oh, don't worry, I think I do have a good tune for this, Margaret said with a wicked smile. I might as well make Abe take all the credit for it to enhance his credibility. Are we really going on with this? Arya asked with a frown. Duh, that's what Victor would have done. Margaret explained, making both Elise and Lynn nod. Absolutely right.